Hey guys, I'm back. So, after I was prescribed amoxicillin, I was able to see a doctor about 4 days later. The pain, the lump, everything was still there. It was actually getting worse. It was getting more tender. The lump was getting larger and it was visibly like red. So, I went to see this primary doctor and I don't even think I was in the office for more than 5 minutes when I showed them the area that I had the lump. He told me right away, he said, get in your car, go to the Women's Cancer Center now. He's like, I'm going to send a referral. You don't need to wait for paperwork, just go. So, of course, I freaked out and I called my mom crying. I called my dad crying. I'm like, oh my God, I have cancer. I was freaking out. I was thinking worst case scenario. So I get to the Women's Breast Center. I go in, and they have some kind of like urgent care inside of there. So I go in there and they're like, yeah, we got the call from your doctor. We're going to take you to the back. So I ended up getting a mammogram, and that's when they started noticing the lump was solid, like a lot of built up tissue. So then I went and got a CAT scan, and the CAT scan kind of just showed the same thing. It was showing how solid it was. They didn't see any puncture, they didn't see any liquid, no pockets, nothing that they thought that they could just go in and drain. So then I'm waiting in the waiting room. I've been in the waiting room maybe about an hour at this point. I'm going from mammogram to CAT scan, and I meet this doctor for the first time, and she just tells me they don't know what it is. They can't tell if it's cancer at the moment, but what they want to do is they want to do a biopsy. And they kind of just explained that process to me, where they were going to stick a large needle in, and it was going to kind of be something like they were going to pinch all the way through, take a sample out. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the biopsy. So the part that was traumatizing for me is I'm by myself. You know, my family, they live in another state. I'm living in Connecticut at the time. My family lives in Indianapolis. My dad lives in Texas. So I'm just going through all of this mentally, and I'm just signing all these consent forms to do all this stuff. I'm meeting the doctor that's coming in, that's performing the biopsy. I'm meeting, all these different people at the same time, and it's just overwhelming. So I think at that time I wasn't really expressing any emotion until I laid on the table, and then they started bringing out all the tools, and then I kind of just started getting emotional there. So, you know, they numbed the area, and the doctor was kind of just feeling around, seeing where the best way to go was, because this thing was so hard. It was as hard as a softball. So they go in with the biopsy, and the first needle breaks inside my breast while he's performing the biopsy. So they have to pull it out, cover the wound because I'm just bleeding, and then they let me catch my breath because I can't feel anything. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna explain what happened. The needle we thought was strong enough, it's not. He's like, it's like going through a rock right now. We're gonna have to use a bigger, stronger needle. He's like, unfortunately, you're gonna feel this one. So I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm just like, I just want to know what I have. So he goes in, they do it again, and I'm freaking out. And they're like, it's going to take a few days, maybe up to a week for you to get the results. So I go back into the doctor's office with the breast surgeon who initially did my review for the CAT scan and the mammogram. And she said she's never experienced anything like this. She doesn't know what it is or what it could be. And of course, that didn't help me mentally. And I think the most irritating part for me was every new room that I went into from the time that I entered that breast center, that cancer center, was, what are you doing in here? You're too young to be in here. And they kept saying that. And I don't know if that was them trying to comfort me, or I don't know. It was like emotionally traumatizing to hear that. I don't want to hear that I'm the youngest person, that you don't know what I have, and I have to go through all these different tests, and you guys still have no idea what I have.